Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Coffee Time. I am your host, Byron. Alongside me is formerly minor league player slash international player. I can officially say that because he's been
Yes.
all over the world. Well, at least the two countries that I know of. Derrick Loop, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. A long hiatus for me since I've been misplaced by the hurricane, but it's all good. We found a place. We will
Great.
be moving next month. Kudos to God for that.
Awesome.
But I'm glad to be back and doing this again. How are you tonight? And thank you again for joining me.
Of course. Hey, thank you for having me on. I'm doing really well. I've been, very fortunate. I'm here in California. I was down in Mexico for a long time, but in California, it didn't was not affected by the storms. So I'm, grateful for that. I'm glad that you got a place that you found, and you'll be heading there soon. But no, again, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it just sucks. I mean, it sucks being misplaced for sure. Like and the sad part is we were in a non-evac zone too.
Crazy.
It was it was all just because of this hurricane that brought all this rain, and the little creek we had behind us flooded over. It's
Man,
crazy. It's just a
that's tough.
freak accident. You never
Crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're doing well. You're newly retired. Um yeah, so as we before we got on the air, you were talking how weird and how fresh it is to be freshly retired. I
Certainly.
mean, it's still got to feel weird to you though. I know you feel you part of you still got to want to play.
Oh,
I
for
know
sure.
that for a
And
fact.
I don't think that it'll be a time in a professional baseball player's life where there's not a part of them that doesn't still want to play or think that maybe he can play and still compete at a high level. But yeah, that I think that part will always be there. I think it's just getting to the point where you know that it's not going to happen and still embracing that competitive spirit, but maybe channeling that somewhere else.
Did you feel like you still had it in you before you retired, or did
Oh,
you
for
know it was
sure.
time to go?
For sure. So my circumstances were fairly unique. I am 40 years old, so not too many guys can say they played until they're 40. I felt that I had a very, very good season. Not my best season, but a pretty good season for, especially for being 40, not just being 40, but just in general, as a middle late reliever in a very high altitude place. Most places are really high altitude in Mexico, in the Mexican
Mhm.
League. But I did not acquire a winter baseball job. But while I was waiting to possibly sign in the winter this year, I lived in Culiacan, and Culiacan is the capital of the Sinaloa drug cartel. And unfortunately, over the last couple months, there has been a major, major uptick in cartel violence inside, especially in Culiacan. So
Mhm.
I made the decision that it was time to get my family out of there. My wife is Mexican from Culiacan. Both my kids were born there. They're dual
Mhm.
citizens like me. It was
Mhm.
time to get them out of there and back to California, where I was from. So that kind of sparked my retirement. It wasn't what I had planned, but um, obviously at this point family is always first, and I would be very happy with my career if I never played baseball again, which seems fairly likely at this point. I am not disappointed in how it went. Would I have liked to finish a different way? Sure, but I'm very happy that my family is safe and sound, and I'm in a position where I can figure out what I want to do next.
Now to end it off on that, did you have any other takers before you decided to retire? Did you have any takers?
In the winter league, I had a lot of interest. No one that offered me a contract. Some teams that wanted me to wait, maybe a month until the second half of the season came, because a lot of guys were going to be going home, and they substitute their guys in and out at the break. So I had guys that wanted me to wait around and for that situation to happen, but it just worked out to where I felt best to get out of there and maybe pursue something else. What the crazy part about this is, now that I've been here in California, I have not picked up baseball. I have not necessarily thought about training for baseball. I've
Mhm.
been really focused on trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life,
Mhm.
whether it's becoming a coach or doing something of that nature. That part would be difficult for me because in my mind, I'm the most competitive person I know. So for me to go into coaching and not being able to compete, that would be tough to do. Maybe that's something I can get over at some point, but being so close to season or being so fresh out of baseball, that would it does not pique my interest at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. Now you mentioned that you were one step ahead of me. Yeah, I was going to ask you what were you planning on doing if you were planning on being like a obviously you just said it, not an announcer, but maybe like coaching little kids or whatever, helping them the next
Sure.
generation or whatever. Would that be something of your interest sometime? Now that you actually sparked my next question that I was going to ask you.
Um, I think that was something that I could enjoy. I don't know if I'd make a career out of it. I can definitely see myself doing that as a hobby or maybe a side project or a side quest. My son's only 9 months old. I have a 4-year old daughter as well. So
Hmm.
when they get into sports, maybe I might be something like that. But I don't know if that is something that I would want to do full time. That I would want to put my heart and soul into, because I don't think that I would enjoy it as much as I did playing myself.
And I don't blame you on that. I've had some people that I've interviewed say the same thing that just don't interest them because they have other interests, and it would get them in a point of wanting to play. Spark that interest in
Sure.
playing again. And I was like, yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I don't blame you guys for doing that. So I mean, yeah. So I feel you on that. Um, but yeah, take me through. Okay, so you obviously played in the Mexican leagues. Your
Sure.
time there played in Mexico. Now, what'd you take from that experience playing over there compared to your minor league teams that you played for
Oh,
over
sure.
here?
I mean, it's really, really difficult to compare those because it's completely different types of baseball. When you're in the minor leagues, it is, especially now, from what I'm hearing, it's purely development. It's not based about on winning. It's about developing as a pitcher. I'm a pitcher, developing your pitches, and it's all about progressing to the next level. Obviously, all those guys want to make the big leagues, but there's no emphasis on winning. It's more about development and progressing and getting better as a player, which everybody wants to do. But the competitive atmosphere is almost taken away in the sense they're not putting guys in a like a closer in a situation to close the game. They're not making pitching changes when a guy needs to come out because he's not throwing the ball well. He's got to get to a pitch count and that kind of thing. And then you get the guys, at least when I was there, you get some of the older guys that maybe are a little bit salty or bitter that they're not a higher level or in the big
Mhm,
leagues. Um, so that's definitely something you see more in the minor league side in the U.S. And the fans are decent. You get fans there. Most of them are families. They bring their kids there to go play in the playground and kind of like a family outing and that kind of thing. The difference you see on the Latin side, the Mexican side, where I've played most of all, is I mean, there's still families and that kind of stuff there, but they're very passionate about their team. They're in it from pitch one to the very end of the game. Even if they're down 5, 6, 7 runs, that they don't leave the game early. They're there to cheer their guys on.
mhm,
It's more electric. The atmosphere is much more electric there because the teams are there about winning, especially in the winter league. And it's only a 76 game season. There's two halves, and you got to go out there and win. Winning is the most important thing there. And I think that's why I feel like I thrive there because it wasn't about a development thing. It wasn't, let's go through the 120 game season in the minors, try to get a little better where we can't really control our future. We can only control what we're
right,
doing every day. When you go
right,
to a place like that where it's all about winning, you win. You play well or you go home. That's the nature of the business down there. So it's a love hate thing down there. If you do really well, it's great. If you don't do really well, it can eat you up and spit you out, and you can have a good season, but if they find somebody they think is better than you, regardless of what you have done in that situation, they move on really quickly. So a lot of things to love down there, a lot of things to hate down there. Same thing in the U.S. A lot of things to love and a lot of things that maybe can be different, and you have to kind of acclimate to your surroundings and the type of baseball they play. So I loved every second of me playing in Mexico. I had a chance to play in the DR 2 or 3 different times as well. One
mm,
time in Venezuela, and I played in the Caribbean World Series in Puerto Rico as well. So I'm well traveled. I actually had a baseball season in Japan, which most people don't know about because it's really hard to find the stats on that. I played. It was an indie league, independent league, still professional baseball, but independent league in Japan in 2014, trying to get signed by the NPB. I did not get signed while I was there. They wanted me to stick around for some tryouts after the season was over. I decided to come back to the U.S. and finish my season in Lancaster, in an independent league in Lancaster, where we won a championship there too. So enjoyable on both sides. There's pros and cons on both. If I had to choose, because I didn't make the big leagues, I would absolutely prefer to play in Latin baseball. I would have loved to experience Korea or Japan as well, the big leagues there because they're very passionate about their teams as well.
Mhm.
But from my experience, Mexico was the penultimate location for me. That was that I considered that my big leagues, especially playing for the Tomateros in Culiacan, where we're averaging 15 to 20,000 fans a night in the
Oh no,
games.
I
So
feel you there because I've talked to some people that I've had on my pod. I've had some players have played in Japan, and yeah, like you said it yourself, since you played over there, not the main league over there, but you did play over there. The fan base is really loyal over there. Like
yes,
really, I mean, they're you would think baseball over there is more American than it is over here. I just don't know what it is about America. It's like not America's pastime no more. Literally, Japan, to me, from what I've heard, has taken over. I don't. To me, I don't know because I'm not over there. But
sure.
the games I have seen on TV and the fan bases from when they have aired the games
Um,
over in Japan, yeah, I do believe that fan base is wild and crazy. But I mean, it just seems hard to believe that America's pastime, as they call baseball,
yeah,
a country would oversee that, right?
sure. But
It's
I
over
think
there.
that we're spoiled being here in the U.S. because we have so many sports to choose from. So during this
Yeah,
baseball season, there's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer. So there's so many things to choose from. In
true.
Japan, you don't see a whole lot of other sports other than baseball. Baseball is definitely their number one thing, and they're very humble, but they're very prideful in their team, and they love their team to the end. So it's an awesome thing to see. But like I said, I think we're spoiled over here on the U.S. side because we have so many options that baseball is great. But I mean, oh, baseball season's over. We can go support this team or that thing. We're not just waiting around 5 6 months for the season to come back around like they do.
Yeah, I didn't think of it as that, but I should have known. Yeah, you're right. We have so many sports here. Yeah, we're so spoiled, and it's true. But to me, baseball should still be America's pastime, even though a lot of people don't think so anymore. I still think it is. It still is to me because I mean, it's been around the longest than anything. I think. Um, but I gotta ask you now, since you did play in the Mexican leagues, and you did say it's different, obviously, than over here, which is true. It is. Were you guys in any way associated with minor league, uh, minor leagues at all? Like over here, if you know what I mean by the teams,
Sure.
are those
So
teams
there,
associated to the minor leagues over here, to the pro teams over here?
so
How does that?
there was a relationship for a long time between MLB and the Mexican Summer League. Um, Sometimes the Mexican nationally, the national Mexicans that go play in the U.S. If they do not have a place to play, they
Mhm,
can be loaned out to the teams in Mexico. So there'll still be property. I have one specific example. I played with a guy with the Dodgers in the Dodgers organization. I was in spring training with him. We played together in the Winter League, but they did not have a spot for him in the minors, so they
mhm,
loaned him down to the Mexican League. He is property of one of the Mexican League teams. I can't remember which one it was, but he got to go play in the Mexican League while he was still property of the Dodgers. If the Dodgers ever needed him on a minor league team, they would call him back from Mexico to go play. And that happened to him a couple of times. So they did have that relationship. And the Mexican Summer League was considered a AAA league on the stats for a long time. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, this is not uncommon in Mexico. They found out that some of the Mexican League teams were if guys were getting signed by in the international draft pool for $500,000, they were taking 80 90% of the kid's salary or of the
mhm,
kid's signing bonus.
mhm.
And MLB had a major problem with that, and by doing that, they cut off official ties to the league. Now there were still guys getting signed out of the league to go back to affiliated baseball in the U.S. Um, but it was lesser than, and now it is considered an independent league. So before, if guys had played in this league down here, it would be considered they played at the level of AAA baseball. But now it is left as it's labeled as an independent league. So the affiliation is not there anymore, even though there's still a relationship with guys getting out of here to go play back in the U.S.
Now, did you go through that problem when you were playing with the affiliation, or did you have
No,
any
no.
issues with that?
So when I was affiliated, the last time I was affiliated was 2012 with the Dodgers. I played full season in AAA, had a great year there, and unfortunately for me, I never made it back to affiliated baseball. After that, I went to independent league in 13. Did not have a great year that year. That's when I had the opportunity to go play in Japan in the independent league in 14. Did not get signed there to go play in the big leagues, even though I had a lot of success there.
Mm,
And then 15 and 16, I had incredible seasons in the summer league, in the independent league, in the Atlantic League. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Atlantic League.
I am
It's okay, so it's really high level baseball outside of affiliates. So it's double A, triple A level baseball. Threw the
basically
ball
yeah.
really well there. Did not get signed out of there, which was that was probably the most existential crisis in my life that I had about playing baseball. I was throwing the ball great and not getting signed. Then I got my first opportunity to play in Mexico in 16. And then after in 16, because there was never any affiliate baseball for that, I was down there full time. Started the winter league with the Tomateros, and then started playing year round in the summer in the winter league for the last 7, 8 years.
So what was your pitching repertoire and what was your go-to pitch?
Sure. So, me being a lefty reliever, I used
Hey,
to,
fellow
I,
lefty.
yeah, buddy. So
Yeah.
I used to be starter, long reliever. So I was a more fastball cutter, curveball. When I became a full time reliever, which is where I found my niche, I turned my cutter into a slider, and that was probably the best decision I made. So I was more little two seam sinker away, four seam fastball, and I threw my slider probably 60, 70% of the time when I first started, when I first became a reliever. And I had a lot of success that way. But as time goes on, you have to evolve, and I started developing a better sinker. I worked on a split for 2 or 3 years in the bullpen before I ever threw it in a game, and that became a really good pitch for me. And then at the very end of my career, like the last year and a half, 2 years, I brought my cutter back. So I was throwing a four seam fastball, a cutter in, and a slider in versus righties. A lot of sliders against lefties with hard two seamer in. And then late in the count, I would probably throw a split to a righty because they're sitting on a split on a slider, or maybe sitting on a sinker away. And if I can throw a split down and away, I got a lot of swing and misses on that. That was my pitch when I played the Dominican 2 years ago at 38. I think it was 19 strikeouts in 17 innings, and I think 18 of those strikeouts were on splits. So it was a good pitch for me. It's something I had to evolve as a pitcher, and if you don't evolve, you're not going to last as long. I was not a super high prospect at all at any point in my career. My hardest fastball ever in my life was 95, but I was typically most of my career 88 to 92. Touch a 93 or 94 once in a great while. My last season, I think my average fastball was right around 89.1 or 88, something there. Touching a 90, 91 at 40. I was happy that I got up to 90 at some point during that 40-year-old season, but I'm mostly an off-speed pitcher anyway. So it was just to show the fastballs to get them off my slider.
And you said you were part of one year with the Dominican World Series and all that World Series down there. That you talk about in other countries being dedicated to ball down there because that's all they do as well. Take us through that experience. I'm sure that had to be a thrill and excitement for you too, being with those professional players that tend to come over here too. A lot of them
Oh,
and
for
play
sure.
over
So
there. I mean,
there's
tell us through that experience because that crowd is wild and crazy as well.
absolutely. So the Dominicans is a little bit different from me. I mean, when you think of Latin baseball players coming out of Latin America to go play in the U.S., you think of Dominicans and Venezuelans. Not so much
Correct.
about Mexicans at this point, even though they're getting better and they're
Right.
getting better training and that kind of thing. And I think that there's a huge untapped market in Mexico, for quality players. But DR is something different. The Dominican is something different. When I was there, I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'3", 235 pounds. I'm on the lower half of the spectrum on any team that I played on down there, or I was only with two different teams. But of all the guys down there, they're built different. They pick up baseball from birth, and because that's baseball or the MLB and the DR have a great relationship with the USA and that kind of thing. So it's easier for those guys to get over because it's easier to scout them. There's so many baseball academies in the DR that they're developing these kids from
Yep.
5 years
That's
old. And the
all
moment
they
they can
do
pick up a
over there.
baseball, exactly right, and it's obvious, and they have a huge passion for it. And I remember sitting on the couch. This was 2 years ago when I played there with the Gigantes, and I'm just looking at the guys around me, and I have like for instance, Fernando Rodney and all these other guys in the big leagues. I had five guys in my locker room that had made over $50 million in the big leagues, and I would say 95% of the guys on the team were either current or former big leaguers on the team. So it was a very humbling experience being a guy down there at 38 years old, lefty, never played in the big leagues. but still holding my own. Still had a really good season playing against some of the best players in the world. Even the big name guys down there. I played against Fernando Tatis when he was down there playing for the Estrellas, and those kind of guys. I punched out O'Neill Cruz on four sliders. He wasn't even close to me, so I have him in my back pocket, O'Neill
There
Cruz.
you
So
go.
that was a cool experience for me. And there was a couple other guys that I faced. Their names evade me right now, but one guy was a switch hitter. He was I could not get him out. I throw him something away, hit the ball away, jammed him in. He turned on it, hit the ball down the line. So um, I did not dominate everybody, but I definitely held my own while I was down there. It was such a great experience. But if I had to rate, the way that things work down there, Dominican's the best league as far as the most talent. Easiest way to get picked up too if guys are trying to get back into affiliated baseball, or if they don't have a team, they're a free agent. If you can go down and throw in the DR, there's lots of scouts, there's lots of professionals down there, lots of major leaguers down there. If you can do well down there, it's your best opportunity to get back in the U.S. and maybe pitch for another major league organization. Venezuela was really good. The unfortunate part about that is there's so much, political strife and
Unfortunately, yeah.
down in the Venezuela. There's a lot of talent down there too, but it's unfortunate for those guys because not anybody, especially Americans, feel safe going down there right now with the way things are going.
Right.
Um, so Mexico's it's got that mix. You have some guys that are really good. You get some younger guys they're trying to develop on these winter ball teams. But definitely the most fun I ever had was playing in Mexico. Culiacan has like 800,000 people in Culiacan, and their fan base is second to none. Fortunately for me, I threw the ball really well while I was there. I won 3 championships. I had a cumulative ERA under 2 in the 6 years that I played there. So definitely the most fun I ever had was down there. Um, but most humbling was definitely in the DR, even though I threw the ball really well.
How is the Mex you said you obviously were part of championship teams in Mexico.
Yes.
How is their championship compared to our World Series over here? Is it the same level series, same level atmosphere? How is that process? Is it like a 7 game, 5 game? How does that series work out?
So the DR is kind of nuts because they have a round robin tournament where you play 16 games. There's 5 teams, or 6 teams, and you play everybody. Was it 5 times? I don't know exactly how it worked, but you played everybody 5 times, and so it was a round robin where you're playing every team five
So
times.
it's like the World Baseball Classic, basically.
Kind of like that, yes. And then the best 2 teams, but it's only the best 2 teams. The 2 teams with the best records play a best of 9 series. So the first team to win 5 games. I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, never. I
Before
haven't
the
either.
DR.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
same.
best of 9, and then
Weird.
that team wins their championship there, and they go to the Caribbean World Series. In Mexico, it's a little bit more straightforward. It's a little more straightforward now. There used to be only 8 teams in the league. Was it 8 teams? Yeah, 8 teams. Only 6 teams went to the playoffs. So the best loser advanced in the first round. So if you were the best loser, you'd advance. I won a championship as the best loser one year with Tomateros. So I can't knock it totally. But now there's 10 teams and 8 teams go to the playoffs. So that way it's straight up. 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a best of 7 series of all of them, all the rounds. So
So,
a little more
right.
traditional there, but the intensity there is fantastic. It's second to none. From first pitch to the end, it's awesome, man.
So now this might be a good question to ask, and maybe not. I don't know. Seeing how you were a veteran, like you said, on the Dominican teams that you were a part of, and the Mexican, I know there were, like you said, experienced other major leaguers that you played for, played with on there. Did you learn anything from them, considering the fact that they were in the majors, or did you feel like to yourself, "Oh, if I'm a certain age, I didn't have to learn anything at all." If you get what I'm trying to say, like
Sure,
pitching
sure, sure.
wise.
I'll
So
tell you this. If there was a there, I tried to be a person where I never thought I knew everything because I thought I could learn something from anybody. Is whether it was a mindset or a grip on a different pitch or what made this guy successful over this guy. Matter of fact, there was a guy in the minors. He had a little bit of a call up in the big leagues. He taught me my newest slider. My slider was always my best pitch, but I was always trying to evolve, always trying to try new things. He was there. He was much younger than me, but he had been learning a new pitch in the big leagues, the sweeper that everybody talks about. And he
mhm.
taught me how he threw a sweeper, and I adjusted my fingers a little bit differently than his, but more along the same grip as his. And he taught me how to throw a sweeper, and it ended up being a great pitch for me. So I was always trying to learn. I try to pass on whatever information I can. Just because these guys are big leaguers doesn't mean they don't listen. They understood. They respected the fact that I was still grinding and I was still in the game. So I think it went both ways. You kind of get a feel for the guys that think they know everything and don't want to talk to you, and then you get a feel for the guys that are always trying to learn, always trying to get better, always trying to help other people. So I try to be one of those guys. I didn't want to say I steered clear from the guys that were like that because there's a reason why those guys are like that, and some of their confidence or cockiness, if you want to call it that, is why they have success. So I tried not to judge anybody in that sense, but I tried to be open minded as much as I could and learn as much as I could. I knew at 38, I wasn't trying to get to the big leagues. I know that wasn't going to happen. It was just going to
Mhm.
be how can I extend my career longer and how can I, learn something that's going to keep me around longer. As long as I can stay healthy, I still feel like I could pitch till I'm 45, and I still think I can. It just got to a point where um, taking care of my family in that aspect was much more important than me trying to play till 45.
Now, this is a question that I asked to all the ones that have pitched over or played over, hit it over uh, in other countries. How did you handle the language barrier? Did you have an interpreter? Did you learn their language well? How take us through that process, and how was the language barrier for you?
Well, I can tell you now I'm fluent in Spanish because that was something that was really important to me when I first got down there. I knew that while playing indie ball in 2015 and 16, that I was not going to make a career playing independent ball. There's no money in it, and
Mhm.
I was running out of time to try to find another place to play, whether it was whether it was Mexico, Korea, or Japan, because that's where the three major summer leagues are.
Right,
So my
right,
first opportunity came in Mexico. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bust my butt, and I want to learn the language because it's going to help me with my coaching staff. It's going to help me with my teammates. It's going to help me with the fans. So the more that I can, be an asset to a team, the longer my life in baseball could possibly be. So that way, I'm not just a guy. I played with plenty of guys down there that played there 5, 6 years and never learned how to speak the language. Which to each their own. If that's something they want to do, they learn
right,
enough to get by. That's fine.
right.
I wanted to learn it. I spent a solid 3 years on Google Translate, talking to everybody that I could. I was very fortunate, if you want to say it, my very first year playing in the summer league down there. I was traded from a team that had 99% English speakers to a team that had two guys that spoke English in the whole team in Campeche, one of the farthest points south in Mexico that you can go, where English was not spoken anywhere, not even taught in schools, really. So it was very fortunate for me because that forced me to learn. I wanted to learn, and it forced me to. And I was in it every day, and there were days I was extremely frustrated. But at this point, I'm fluent. I met my wife in Mexico. She speaks English and Spanish too, but she helped me learn quite a bit of Spanish. My kids were both born in Mexico. My daughter's first language is Spanish. But yeah, I'm very happy to say that I'm fluent. It was not easy at first, but worth every second of it to grind it out and learn the language.
So you faced off, like you said, against Tatis. You did O'Neill's of the Pirates. Was there any other ball players that you struggled with or that you had success against that translated to those players that are over here now in the majors? Who else did you face? You remember?
I'm trying to think of other guys that I played against. I can see a guy's face. He was actually the MVP in the 2022-23 season in the summer league for the Dominican. I can see his face and his build. He was a switch hitter, and I had a really tough time with him. He didn't hit the ball super hard off me, but it was a guy that I think I got him out 2 or 3 times. One of them was a strikeout, but he got probably 4 or 5 hits off me. I faced him often to move him over to make him. I guess he was supposed to be a worse hitter from the right side, um, but he was a good, just a solid hitter. I cannot think of his name. He got called up to the big leagues. I'm not this year a little bit. I'm pretty sure most of last year. Trying to think of some other guys. Most of the guys that I can remember are pitchers because I mean that's who I spent most of my time with. But there's so many guys that have just flamethrower arms. I saw guys down there. A starting pitcher, he was only allowed to throw like 50 pitches in a game because he was still in a minor league prospect, but he was sitting at 100 miles per hour, touching 102, and his spin rate on his fastball. I'm not sure if you're familiar with spin rates and pitch FX and that kind of stuff, but his spin rate was spun more than most sliders and breaking balls, which was unbelievable. So he had great ride and like rise on his fastball. That kid's going to be a stud. I cannot remember his name. I just knew he was a young kid throwing up to 102. He's probably 6'6". Um, but like I said, just great experience. I'm trying to think of other guys that I might have faced. I don't. Dela Cruz didn't play down there. I thought I wanted to face him if he was down there, but he wouldn't. He wasn't playing. Um, O'Neal Cruz, I remember just because I got him on 4 pitches. I faced over my time there. What God, what's his name? I played for the Dodgers. He was a mess of a guy, Cuban guy. I struck him out, got him out a couple times. Puig, Yasiel Puig, faced him a few times. Um, got him out every time. Fortunately for me, he was a quite the character, if you want to say that. But
Oh yeah, he sure
yeah,
was.
yes, not the best teammate from what I heard, but that's only from what I heard. I did not experience it firsthand. He was really nice to me when I talked to him. Um, I tried talking to him in Spanish, which maybe was my problem. This has been a few years ago, so my Spanish wasn't nearly as good as it is now. But he was speaking to me in the Cuban accent. For me, is the hardest one to understand. The way they speak, how fast they speak,
Right.
it's tough. But I tried to fight my way through it and kind of shook my head through some things he was talking to me about. And I was like, sorry, dude.
I believe that one. I believe that one. So
Yes.
throughout either your career in Mexico, here in America, your time in Dominican, to your time in Japan, couple year, your pitching coaches. What you learn from them, and what pitching coach gave you the most information that you would still use today?
Okay. So I had I'm going to call him a guru. His name is Dominic Johnson. He was not affiliated with any specific um, organization, and he wanted it that way because if he was with an organization, the organization would not let him work with other players. He lives in San Diego, Poway area, and organizations would send their guys to him for his pitching mechanic prowess and that kind of thing. So that guy, this was how many years ago now? 10 to 15 years ago that I met him and completely saved my career, if you want to say that. Because mechanically, I had not really learned much in the minor leagues, definitely didn't learn much in college.
Mhm.
Had a lot of faulty stuff going on mechanically, a lot of pain in the shoulder and that kind of thing. And him, over the course, I mean, I had to put the work in, but him, working with me over, a 2 3 year period, completely changed my mechanics and the way I felt throwing the baseball, created some more velocity, created more rotation on my breaking pitches. Throughout my career, I go down and see him once in a while just to throw a bullpen, more to hang out because there's so many pro guys that go down there, 20, 30, 40 pro guys at a time into his backyard where he had the mound set up. Um, I credit him, Dominic Johnson. He saved my career. I learned more from him than probably any other guy that I've played with. I had a lot of guys in professional baseball that I had a lot of respect for, but that he's probably the guy that I learned the most from.
Now, being either other leagues you were in, being traded or released, to the players I've talked to, it's been hit and miss. What's your take? What's with? How's your take on it? Do you feel like it sucks that you want to just stay in one area, or is it a blessing for you? Do you that teams that at least just wanted you? That shows that they showed interest. What's your take on that? Because I've had a lot of players I've interviewed before that are 50-50 that I've had on it. So
Sure.
what's your take on that?
Now,
How do you feel on that?
I think it's all subjective in the sense as far as being even traded or released, but more traded. Sometimes guys are in situations where they're absolutely miserable and they just don't click with the team and they're in a slump and the best thing for them is to get released or get traded. And I've seen a lot of guys that get traded or released and go to a new team and absolutely flourish and have a lot of success. Now, there's always exceptions to that. There's guys that maybe they're playing well or playing decent, and they go to a new team and they just fall flat. And that's just unfortunately that's how baseball works. I have been released more times than I care to talk about. No, I don't have any issue with it. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of baseball. My
Right.
very first year in the summer league, not in the winter league, but in the summer league, I made the All Star team, and then 2 weeks later they released me because they needed a hitter in my roster spot because I play as an import. There's only 6 or 7 imports allowed per team, and they determined that their pitching was good enough without me that they needed my roster spot for a hitter. And
Right.
they have a cutoff date. So July 31st is usually the last day they're allowed to change players. So I was released July 30th or July 31st to sign a new player. So my season effectively finished at that point because nobody else was allowed to sign anybody. So that's a tough situation. I was playing for a team that wasn't very good, didn't pay well, and it was not a a great city to be in as far as an import player. I lived at the hotel, and the hotel was not very nice. So if I want to consider that a blessing or an issue, and the grand scheme of things ended up being a blessing. The next year, I signed with somebody else in 2017. Um, Played with. So I ended up playing in Cancun. I played with the Oaxaca and the Guerreros. So I've been well traveled. I played for Olmecas in Villahermosa. It's the most south team there is outside of Cancun. Cancun's, I mean, fortunately for them, is in a resort city. So that is very Americanized down there, really expensive. But other than that aspect, really comfortable down there for Americans. I was in Villahermosa where it was 105 to 110 degrees every day with 80% humidity. Which once you can get used to that as a pitcher, it is awesome because the ball doesn't fly, your pitches move, really easy to warm up. To live there would not be fun. I know a lot of teams hated coming there because it was so hot and miserable, which made it better for me as a reliever. Like if we're winning the game, they're like, let's just get this game over with, so I can go out there and go bam, 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 and I had a lot of success at that place. Um, but yeah, to get back to your point, it's really subjective on the situation. Sometimes it's a great thing, sometimes it's a bad thing because maybe you're feeling great, or maybe you have a great relationship with some of the players on the team. And some of it, unfortunately, down there, there's no players union or any of that stuff. So the ownership and those guys have all the power, and some of those guys can be very vindictive. So if you don't play the game the way they want you to, or the situation isn't, or they want to prove a point, they can screw you just to do it because they're able to. Because we don't have any say. The only thing we can do is not play. And I mean, for most guys that play baseball as a full time job their whole life, it's tough to give that up. So a lot of times we have to kind of grit our teeth and put up with it, or you move on with life. So um, I would say, from what I've seen more hand, I think this it would probably be 55-45 or 60-40, better getting traded, those guys, because most of the guys are getting traded. That means that the guys that are there don't want you, and the guys that are bringing you in want you. So it's a
Right.
great mindset to have when that happens. Getting released is tough because sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it's really obvious, like, yeah, I deserved it. I get it. Other times, like, I can't. Like, what happened? We just
Yeah.
found somebody we like better, or hey, we need your spot for somebody else. It's the nature of the game, unfortunately, but it is what it is.
So, I want to know, in all the leagues you were in, every league you were in, give me your worst and your best season, stat, statistician wise, that you had.
Sure. Um, One of the worst seasons I've ever had was 2013. I don't remember my exact numbers that year. But I remember I played in AAA. I pitched the whole year. I was 12-4 or 11-4, 11-4 in AAA with a sub 5 ERA in Albuquerque. So if you know anything about the PCL in Albuquerque, Albuquerque's over 5,000 feet. So I'm facing AAA big league guys at elevation of 5,000, almost Coors Field height. And as a starter, I had a sub 5 ERA with 11 wins and 4 losses. I thought I was going to be a shoe in somewhere in spring training. If it wasn't back with the Dodgers again, because I was a free agent, I signed a 1 year with them,
Right.
definitely somebody's going to bring me. I was a lefty. I was up to 94. I was low 90s fastball, cutter, slider with good numbers. Not great strikeout numbers, but I was a starter, so it wasn't that I had fewer hits than innings pitched. And when I did not have a single spring training invite anywhere, I got in a really bad mental headspace, and I could not throw strikes to save my life that next season. So I knew that in my mind, if I knew that I threw the ball well that first month of the season in indie ball, I was probably to get back signed. Well, when you have a bad start, it starts to snowball mentally, and that's what happened. I felt like there was a bubble around the strike zone, and the ball just kept running off. I think I had one game where I had 7 or 8 walks in one game, and I could not have been more frustrated or dejected during that season. And I think that's what definitely sparked me to want to go to Japan and pursue an indie ball route there just to see if I can get signed and go over there because I didn't get picked back up and affiliated. Um, and on the other side of that, which was kind of just as frustrating, in 2015, I had probably one of the best seasons of my entire life. I had 49 innings pitched. I gave up 24 hits and I had 60 strikeouts. Lefties went 3 for 59 against me all season with 25 strikeouts and 0 walks against lefties. And I did not get a single phone call from affiliated baseball. I touched 94 that year. I was usually 90, 92, 93 from the left side at 6'3". And we're talking in 2015. So not quite the, the stat era or the pitch FX or TrackMan era where everybody was focused strictly on analytics and that kind of stuff. Um, that was the most frustrating time of my life, having thrown the ball that well and not get a phone call. And then one other really good season I had is my first year playing winter ball in the Tomateros. I pitched 32 innings, 32.2 innings. I gave up 20 hits. I had 47 strikeouts, and I had a 0.5 ERA. So, and that was the year we did not win the championship, but I got picked up as a reinforcement to play in the Caribbean Series. So that was my first time ever representing a country, and my first country I ever represent ends up being Mexico. So that was a pretty cool thing. Go down there, my first year playing down there, pitched great, and I'm wearing Team Mexico on my chest, going out there. We got to the championship game and ended up losing, but it's such a great experience, to have situation where I was never a Team USA guy. I never did anything of that nature. I was never a prospect. It was something I had to grind for from day one to even I went to Division II college and I got drafted as a senior sign at the 23rd round and released after my first season. So it's been a grind ever since then. And, to have a little bit of an accolade that late in my career was kind of actually was a spark to keep me going and, play the next, 7 years down there in Mexico.
Yeah, that's all you can do, right? All you can do is grind. That's passion. That's all you can do,
Yes.
right? So this is a two-part question. I think you pretty much answered it. I know it's not World Baseball Classic, but you pretty much just answered it. You played for Mexico. That had to be a blessing for you, like you said. So that answers that. So my I guess it's still kind of same. It's kind of a two-part. So my first part is, how close were you ever to being possibly ever called up by a team at all to play major leagues? I know you didn't, but how close were you ever?
Oh
And
man.
the second part is, I know it's not like you said, World Baseball Classic, but how'd that process go? And were you ever, is it like an invitation thing? Were you ever invited by Team Mexico or whatever, wherever you played? Were you ever invited by one of those teams to play for
Okay,
like
sure.
the WBC?
I can answer both those questions, and I have a really um, good slash tough answer for the first one. When I was playing with the Dodgers and throwing the ball as well as I did, this was the year that Frank McCourt, I think it was McCourt, right, sold his the Dodgers
Yes.
to Magic Johnson and his group.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
they
That was,
really wanted they really wanted to make a statement that year in 2012. So they were calling up all kinds of guys, they were calling up young guys for the roster spot and putting them immediately on the 60-day roster on 60-day DL. So there's effectively ending their seasons, giving them major league time, but they can use the roster spot to sign somebody else. So effectively, I think at one point they had 46 or 47 guys on the 40-man roster. I was throwing the ball great. I was hoping at some point and get a phone call. Never came. However, my strength and conditioning coach in AAA that year, after the season, was promoted to the major league side. So I contacted him in the offseason and said, "Hey, can I get a training program? Would you mind giving me a training program to work out in the offseason?" He goes, "Yeah, you know what? I got, Clayton Kershaw's program. I can't give you his specific one because it's made for him. So I got to take his name off everything. But come to LA, we'll talk about it and I'll walk you through it." Awesome. I get there and we start talking, we go over the program, and then he drops, I can tell you this now because you didn't resign with the Dodgers, but you were this close to the big leagues. They are talking about calling you up. They were getting ready to pack your bags. And then right at the last minute, Randy Choate became available, and they went and got Randy Choate, who had at the time had like 15 years of big league service time or something like that, throwing 78 from the side or almost underhand. So they went and got a major league veteran instead of call me up. So that was an incredibly cool thing and painful thing to hear at the same time, that I was that close and didn't get there and never had another affiliated inning pitched after that again. So maybe that might have been a part of my demise in 2013, knowing that I was that close and I was in indie ball trying to get back. And when I didn't have a good start, it just like I was this close to the big leagues and I can't get any outs here, and just kind of spiraled down that way. So that was a tough situation for that question. And the next one, um, most of the time when Team Mexico, they can invite you, but most of the time it's the championship team picks their guys, and they pick a few select guys that had a lot of success during the playoffs to join the team as reinforcements. My very first year, I was not a surprise. I could not have been any more dominant that season. So when we lost, they immediately reached out to me and says, "Hey, keep your arm going, stay ready, because we're thinking about bringing you to play for Team Mexico, whoever wins." And the Mexicali won the championship. They called me and said, "Yeah, we're going to bring you down. You're going to be a part of the team." And that will happen. I played three more times for Team Mexico, but that was because we won. I won three championships with Tomateros, so all three times that they won, I got to play for Team Mexico. Um, the 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 thing with the Caribbean Series compared to let's say the World Baseball Classic is wherever you play, whatever, because it usually alternates between the countries in the league.
Mhm.
The team where the league where you're playing, like if you're playing the DR, the games against the DR are the ones that are packed. Everything else is almost basically empty because those teams don't travel well. Where the
Right,
baseball classic doesn't really matter, who you're playing against, where you are. You're going to have fans from all the teams showing up because
right,
there's such a big deal with all the major leaguers playing that kind of thing. So,
right.
I it's not the same experience, I'm sure, as the World Baseball Classic. I had more excitement playing for the championship in Mexico or the DR, where the fans were going nuts at every single game, than I did playing in the actual, Caribbean. It was a super great experience, and awesome to be able to do that and travel and that kind of thing. But it was definitely a lot more fun playing for the actual championship in the league I was playing in.
So I got a question from my loyal fan that's tuning in all the time when I have a baseball guy on. He's a Bill Stat guy. He
Sure,
wants to know. I don't know if you can see this up on the board
I
here.
cannot.
He asked the question. Can you describe circumstances of your only base hit? I'm guessing, obviously, of course, it's minors, as he knows. And I don't know where you got it, but I couldn't even find it
Well, if you,
looking
if
up
you
this
check my
fast.
record, if you check
So,
my offensive record, I'm like 1 for 16 or 1 for 17 with a bunch of strikeouts. For one, I bat right-handed. I'm a left-handed pitcher that bats right-handed, so I'm a Randy Johnson style without the 101-mile-an-hour fastball.
mhm.
Um, but I'll tell you, that's kind of a cool experience for me because it was against Brad Hand. Brad Hand was rehabbing. I ambushed him first pitch fastball down out of the zone. I went down on a fastball and drove it back up the middle for a base hit. So that was my one base hit I had in my career in AAA. I believe it was we were playing at home in Albuquerque. I do have an RBI as well, and that was because the bases were loaded and I had a full count. I think I fouled off two balls and I got a walk, so I had a bases loaded walk RBI in my career. So I got one hit and one RBI in my
Hey,
career.
from a guy who I wanted to play baseball in my career. I couldn't because I was never good. One, I didn't want to put in the effort. I should have. I regret that. But honestly, I wasn't good enough. But I can say at least I was in your boat. I had an RBI the same way. I
Yeah,
walked.
buddy.
I
That's
didn't get a
awesome.
hit. Maybe once in the blue moon did I ever. But hey, when I did get a hit, I got a hit. So I mean, but hey, I'll take the RBI off a walk.
Absolutely. You know
So.
what? I knew that I wasn't there for that. Obviously, I wanted to have success. I thought it was really cool. This is back before Tommy had passed. He came to visit us in AAA and hung out with the game for a couple times. And very rarely did as long relievers we would take batting practice maybe once a week. If it was a situation where I could possibly come in that day, I'd take batting practice for a round or two. And I had
Mhm.
Tommy Lasorda giving me hitting lessons, and he was complimenting my swing. He didn't know I was a pitcher at the time, but he was complimenting my swing. So to hear Tommy Lasorda not, talk trash to me about my swing, to be like, yeah, swing down the ball. Yeah, it's a great swing. Now look at this guy. And,
That's what
so
I
that,
was always told when I was playing. I had a good swing. I had that lefty low, like the looped swing.
sure.
I had a good swing. I just could never hit put bat to
So you know
ball.
what? I love facing guys like you with a loop swing because if I miss, you'll hit it. But if I don't miss, you're not going to hit me. Sinker in, slider away. So that drop swing, it's
Yep,
that down and in pitch. As long as I
that's what
don't,
we
as long
like.
as I don't, as long as I don't leave it down there, I was going to have success against you guys. But
Yep, that's what we like. You got that right. The
yeah.
lefties love that pitch down and
Now,
in.
I want your guy, that you're a faithful baseball guy. I want him to look up. I can't see if he's typing or if he's still listening. how many pickoffs I had in 2009. Sorry, 2009. How many pickoffs I had in one season?
If you're listening, I know you are because I see you eyeing. I can see the one viewer. So hopefully that's you.
It's
Look
not
that up
easy to.
for him, please.
It's not easy. I know how many it is, but I just want it's. Maybe I'll save him the time if it's the same guy because I'm not sure you have to look that up. I had 17 pickoffs in one season in 2009. So as a lefty, I early on in my career I had a great lefty pickoff move. I lost it after a while because I was so concerned about picking guys off of first base that I wasn't throwing strikes, I wasn't throwing hard, and I
Hmm.
was more concerned. I'd walk guys almost intentionally so I could try to pick them off first base. And at the higher levels, that doesn't work. You don't get away with that kind of stuff
Right,
because there's more
right,
umpires for one. They're a little bit more picky about it, but you can
right,
also get better hitters. You fall behind a guy 1-0, 2-0, you're kind of screwed, especially lefty versus righty.
right,
Those guys are, salivating at that point. But
right.
um, yeah, I had, I think, two different games where I picked off three guys in one game. I picked off most of the guys I picked off were in their secondary leads. So it was a great. That was one of my favorites. That I did an interview or like a written interview for Baseball America at some point during that season about my pickoff. I don't have any. This was 2009, so I don't have any video of actual pickoff during that season. I have a couple still photos, but nothing that you can really tell. How good it was, or why it was deceptive. But that was something I was proud of back in the day. I have way more pickoffs now at second base than I do at first base. My inside move is actually pretty good. I was pretty good at selling it, doing the inside move at second base. I think I have like four or five. I had one in the Caribbean series. I got out of a big spot, picked a guy off second base to end an inning that they were coming back. I had a really good hitter at the plate, and fortunately for me, I got the guy at second base to get out of the jam, and I was pretty proud of that one too. But
So would you say it was kind of like if you were if you were in the majors or the pro in Japan, would you
mhm.
consider your pickoff a balk or would you consider a regular?
Now, see, for me, I feel like I was so good at one point, that as long as the umpire knew that I had a good pickoff move, that I wouldn't have got a call because I'm right near that 45, and it wasn't anything illegal. I wasn't stepping home and trying to confuse guys. I just had my whole thought process was my from my belly button or my hips upwards. I'm going to be squared up straight towards home. So I was going to break my hands like I was going home, and I would take my foot right down that 45 line, and I'd land. And even as I'm landing, like I'm going to pitch, I would turn at the last second to throw the ball, flick the first base. It wasn't a full arm throw. It wasn't about the velocity of the throw. It was literally the deception of having my arm here and flicking the ball to first base. So when I had that done, especially when I was younger, when I'm older, my joints don't move the same. So that kind of thing kind of hindered me, and it was less important about that. It was more important about getting the strikeout or getting the big out of home plate, not so much picking the guy off at first. Um, but I really enjoyed that part of it. It saved me. Like I said, I got almost six full innings out of pickoffs that season. So, and I've had the bat boys that we have home and away bat boys during that season. So the visiting bat boys that are from our side were over there telling me, talking. Trying to warn their guys about my pickoff move before it happened, and the guys would still get picked off because, like, how good could it be? Like, yeah, we'll be careful, and they still get picked off, and they're laughing about how their guys would get chewed out by their coaching staff afterwards, after getting picked off, after being warned about it. So that was we're talking about high A in 2009 in the Carolina League. So not the best league to brag about, but it was something I was pretty proud of.
So my main supporter, his mom lives in Cafaro Park. Do you know anywhere? Is that where you're currently at, or is that where?
Cafaro Park, I'm not sure where that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I don't know where he got that from. That must have been from your reference card or something, wherever he looks up stats. Because this is my main guy here. Like, well, he's my
Cafaro
main
Park?
statistician.
No, I'm in Norco, California. I was born in Corona. And I live in Norco, so I'm not sure where Cafaro Park is.
Gotcha. Um, so what would you say your percentage was then when you had to go pick off move to those guys? And what would it be? Honestly, like you said, I know it wouldn't be good in the major level, like you said, because better talent or whatever. But what would you say your percentage was when you had that good pickoff move for that? And what would you say your percentage would be if you tried it in the majors, if you were in the majors?
Um, at the time, I ended up getting called a double A. I don't think I get anybody double A. Um, I think it would be a great tool to keep guys close to first base. Everything's different now in the big leagues because you only pick off twice before it comes a balk. Maybe I think lefties have a little bit more of an advantage because guys they're going to run are going to run after maybe that second pickoff and when the time is running out. So if you can just sell a little bit as a lefty that you're going to go towards home and you pick to first base, they're going to be getting that secondary lead or taking off the second on a steal. So I mean, you got to play that game a little bit too. Give them two little, BS throws to first base to burn your two. They know that if you pick over there, you have to get the out or not. They're going to try to maybe get a jump on you to get that steal, even if it's a abbreviated slide step or something like that. So, um, I would more use it probably as a tool to keep guys close than to actually try to pick guys off because the pickoffs in the big leagues are not high success rates at all in general. But I think maybe I would have more success than most of those guys. I mean, some of those guys have some good pickoff moves. Urias, before he decided to be an idiot and get himself kicked
Yeah,
out of
I
baseball
know.
forever, had a really good one.
Yeah, he's
Um,
an idiot. I
I
know.
think Cole Hamels had a really good one, if I remember correctly, back in the day.
Him and
Um,
him and Franco from the Rays.
Yes. So um, I think it's definitely a lost art because they're trying to speed games up now and create more offense. So they're kind of discouraging guys from picking over and doing that kind of thing. But I think a good lefty could have a really good opportunity to pick a lot of guys off because those guys are going to be so anxious after those two pickoffs to get the stolen base because stolen bases are coming back into style because of they're kind of giving them the extra base. All these 50, 60, 70 stolen bag guys that never existed 5 years ago, 3 years ago, are
Oh, and
getting
I'm
these
sorry.
opportunities now.
And I'm sorry, it was a question he was trying to ask me. Um, the Cafaro Park was where you first played because I guess your first team was Mahoning Valley Scrappers,
Correct.
and he wants to know your memories from your first ever team.
Oh
From
man, okay, sure. Well, I walked into that team as a 23rd round senior sign, and I'm playing with guys that were first, second, third, fourth rounders making, $100,000+. You knew kind of the way the guys rolled in, how much money they made, or that kind of thing. It was just kind of, I get it. Those guys were, top rounders walking around like, they're the best players in the league. And that was a kind of a little bit of a culture shock. I went from a Division two school where, I was the best pitcher on the team, not playing against any other super big draft picks. To go to a team like that where I'm playing against, lots of guys that were making hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars in their draft. But the actual, I mean, playing at a professional stadium in front of those fans, I think it was a really cool experience for the first time. My first ever game, though, was against the Jamestown Jammers in Jamestown because we started on the road. So that was my very first professional game and my very first professional out. I can't remember who it was, but it was a routine fly ball center field. So I knew that I was so anxious, like, hey, I want to get this first out. I don't care where it is, as long as the first guy I face is not a hit. I mean, I'll be super happy. And the first guy flew up center field, not well hit, not under hit, not weak contact, but I remember that part. Mahoning Valley was a really cool experience. Definitely a learning curve playing professional baseball and being around other, good players and the way the locker room works, the baseball locker room works. Um, but yeah, overall, it was a great learning experience. My host mother and host family was amazing. I'm still in contact with them today. They were absolutely amazing and still great people. And I was very blessed to have them my first year. We had a couple other guys to stay with them. There's three of us to stay with them. Some of the best people I've ever met, and I've been very fortunate actually through my whole career, with the host families that I've had, and because a lot of the indie ball teams have host families too to help guys, save a little bit of money because we're not making anything. But
Right.
no, great experience there. Really enjoyed that. Got a chance to go travel around New York. I had not really left the West Coast at all in my whole life. So to fly out there back east and get a chance to play at Staten Island where I can see the Statue of Liberty, playing in we're in Brooklyn against the Cyclones for the the New York Yankees or the Mets at the time. So get a chance to play in those places was such an awesome experience. So I'm grateful for Mahoning Valley and that team, even though I only lasted a season because the new new front office came in after that season. They fired the front office, so the guys they brought in didn't know me and had no intention of keeping me, and I got released in spring training. So
Yeah, you can't do anything about that, right? They gotta
No,
clean
look,
house. They gotta clean
the
house.
guy,
Schedule
the
meetings.
guy, the
Yep,
guy released me and never saw me throw a
yep.
baseball. He just kind of said, "Hey, look, we just don't see you in a major league uniform." Shook the hand, said, "Thank you for the opportunity," and then you know, back to indie ball and kept grinding.
Any names? Like you said it was a good learning experience for you since it was your first team.
Mhm.
Who'd you learn from that team?
I got to know. I kind of have like a really lifelong friendship with David Huff. David Huff was a first round supplemental draft pick
Hey,
uh,
I think
at
I had him
UCLA.
on my pod one
Did
time.
you? Oh,
Yes,
great guy, great
I'll
dude,
have to send
lefty
you that
lefty
episode.
pitcher.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have
lefty
to send
pitcher
you
like
that.
me.
Yep.
Great guy. Um, whether or not I learned something from him that season, maybe they had to handle the press and the all the people around him because there was a high expectations on him because he signed for so much money and such a high draft pick that he had a lot of pressure on him, maybe put on himself or just from everybody around him from being that high draft pick. That maybe I was a little bit resentful at that time because I'm looking at this guy like this guy got a million plus more than me. I mean, what's it makes him so special? But I think that was just natural at that time. Yeah, you learn that it's first of all it's not his fault. I mean, good for him. He signed for that kind of
Right.
money, and
Yeah.
it's all in perspective on how guys react to that kind of financial success, much less on the field success.
I'll have to see sometime if he can come on with you sometime because I think I still have his info. I know I had that name sounds familiar. I believe I did a pod. I did a pod with him. I believe so.
Well, how about that?
Former New York
Yes,
Yankee, correct?
yes, correct.
Yeah, I believe so. I'll have to go look back at my episodes, but I believe I did a podcast with him. Don't quote me on that
No,
because
no,
I've
sure.
done so
But how
many.
about how
But
about this? We played our first year together in 2006 together, and we just were teammates this last season and our last season together. So he's retiring this year, and I'm retiring this year. So we played our first and our last seasons together.
that's crazy, isn't
Crazy,
it?
crazy. 19 years.
That's crazy.
Hmm.
Seems hard to believe, isn't it?
Oh man, time has flown by. Absolutely flown by. I cannot believe it. Um, I obviously I would have loved to have made the big leagues, but I think everything happens for a reason. I came down to play in Mexico. I found my wife. I have two amazing children, an amazing wife.
When that's better,
I
right?
100%. There's nothing that could replace that. So I think everything ended up the way it was supposed to. Had the opportunity to go down there, learn a second language, and which will I imagine can help benefit me,
Well,
in
yeah, because that's
whatever
our
career.
second language over here.
Correct. So whatever language, so whatever business I go into next, whether it's marketing and sales or coaching and everything else, knowing Spanish or speaking fluent Spanish is going to be a good benefit for me.
I'm sure since he was your, I know it's not much. You didn't have much time with him, but did you ever stay in contact with him to this day, or
For
you
sure.
guys
So
friends? Were you guys
certainly
friends?
more like we stay more in contact via social media, and I'm not sure if it's true for you, but for me with other guys, we don't have to go. We can go long times with long periods without talking and still be buddies and connect really well after a long period of time without talking to each other. And Dave's one of those guys. We went by for a long time and had a chance to actually spend quite a bit of time with him this year, and it was a nice change of pace instead of reaching out once in a great while via social media and say, "Hey man, how's it going? Hey, good for you for doing this." Had a chance to, we actually got to go sit down and have breakfast and lunch on a regular basis during the season. So really cool that you have that. And he's been a good resource for me now that I'm retired. He knew he was going to retire after the season, where I'm just kind of playing it by ear at this point. So I reached out to him. It's a little bit of a crutch for a couple of different things, and see what he might be up to, and see if maybe not tag along with him, but just to get some ideas from him to see what he's doing. He's given me a couple of assets to reach out to see if they might steer me in a direction that I might want to go. But no, awesome dude, and very fortunate to have known him as long as I have.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to if that is indeed who I like I said, don't quote me wrong, but if I did have him on, which that name sounds familiar, if I did,
It
oh
seems likely he would do something like this for sure. Yeah, I mean, he's a
yeah,
great guy.
I'll definitely would like to have you both on at the same time for
That'd be
sure.
awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, do you remember this? Because my statistician here, thank God for my statistician, because I would not
Hey.
known this. Nathan Messner, your first out of you, I guess you were his first out of his career. He flied out to center field. Do you remember that name at all?
No, no, not at all. So that's super cool. That's awesome that he found that because I knew there was a fly out. I was right. It was a fly out center field, and Messner. So that's good to know. But no, I would have never guessed. I
I
would
would
never
have
know.
never known either. Thank you, statistician.
What a guy!
Thank
That's
you.
awesome, man. I would love to know how he finds all that information because I'm a huge stat rat. I love looking up stats all the time. If I'd come up in this era, I think I would be not out of my mind by any means, but I love stats and that kind of thing. And we had very basic stats growing up. I mean, you have your average, everything else, and then you have a couple extra different things that started to apply. Like, I mean, not really much war and stuff like that, but
I think
no,
he told me before baseball reference, but I'm not 100%
uh,
sure.
baseball reference is what I used all the
So
time because you can get a little bit of a breakdown there. Um, not not as deep as a lot of things go, but I've seen the type of information they have on True Media for TrackMan. It is unbelievable. They have everything you could possibly want to know about how pitches move and that kind of thing. They got it, and it's just a matter of how you want to read it. And I had a buddy of mine who was really good with it this year, and he helped me break down, my fastball, what it's doing here, what my breaking ball is doing at the high altitude where we're pitching, and then other places when we're at sea level pitching, and how much more it's moving and how early it moves and stuff. And super cool tool if you know how to use it. Like I said, if I had come up in this time, I don't know if I would have had an opportunity because I don't throw hard enough, or maybe if with the new mechanical stuff that they got going on with like tread and all these other places that teach mechanics and teach guys to throw hard, maybe I would have been throwing a little bit harder than I did in my career. But um, the stat portion would have been, I guess, I would have been obsessed. So maybe that's something I could still get into. Maybe that would be something I could, work on as far as the baseball side. Maybe a front office guy instead of an actual coach, because that might be something I would enjoy. Um,
I could see you
we'll
doing
see.
that.
No, no, for sure. And see, for me, I like that kind of stuff. And excuse me, I've been talking a lot, so voice
No,
is
you're
going a little
good.
bit.
You're good.
Um,
Hey, having fun, so I don't
no,
care.
for sure, for sure. And I'm thinking about. I feel like I communicate with people really well, and I can get along with most people. I don't have any really issue talking with people, so I think that could be a benefit for that side of it. And as long as I can learn how to use True Media and figure some things out, I love to learn. I'm very coachable and that kind of stuff. So we'll see where that takes me.
Now with your pickoff rate, like you said, you were good at it, and you were good at it. I got to ask, so then because it goes hand in hand. So what would you say? What was your stolen base percentage off? Would you say? Would you
Oh
guess
man,
roughly?
very very low in my opinion. Because even when I stopped using my pickoff move as much, I know how to mix in. Knew how to mix in a slide step really well. I had an idea of what guys are going to steal and what guys aren't. Now, of course, I got fooled a few times, or if I knew guys were going to go, that some guys are going to get the stolen bases regardless, and I can only keep them close and give my guy a chance.
Mhm.
But I think over the course of my career, I had an idea of what guys were trying to do to me, and I would try to mess with them too. I try to pretend like I was so focused on the next pitch I was going to throw that I'm not worried about them, and kind of just giving them a quick glance, like, "Oh yeah, I forgot you were there," and then go over there and pick them off or keep them close, or have them do that half step towards second base and dive back barely and safe, just to get them to do that kind of stuff. So obviously, though, stolen base percentage went up since that year, which I think is the only way possible as it can go up because I was so good that one season, especially that. But yeah, so once I got more focused on getting guys out, that wasn't a priority, even though it was still a good tool for me. It was more keeping guys close to set up a double play. So most guys didn't like, especially the guys that are not big steal guys. They're gonna stay one step closer to the base to not worry about it. So that way, give my guys at least to get a chance to get the lead out, if not a double play.
That's what I like about being a lefty. You could tell when the first base runner is going to try and steal on you. Now,
Absolutely,
now when it's second to third, that's kind of trouble because obviously you're a lefty, so that's kind of tough. But
sure,
when you're mainly when they're mainly trying to steal from first to second, it's easier for that. I mean, that's when they mainly steal. But I get your point though. You can when they're going to steal. It's
sure.
just a matter if you can pick them off and it's a balk. Depends on the umpire.
Sure, and that's why as a lefty, I'm a disadvantage for guys on second base, which is why I try to develop my good inside move to keep guys honest. Because I said I think I've had 5 or 6 pickoffs in a row at second base before since my last pickoff at first. Because I just doing the inside move, so I have a few guys that are going first move, stealing third base, and then a couple guys that are just lazy or looking for the pitch home, and I'm turning around, throwing the ball to second base and getting them out. So that definitely became a tool for me more so than my pick off the first. So, yeah.
Now let's talk current, since we had fun about your career, which is awesome. We'll get back into it more, but I want to talk to you. I'm sure you follow it too, just like I do. Current, I know you still follow baseball. We talked about it briefly before. Um, I grew up in the old school form of. I'm sure you did too. You're probably at about. You're obviously a little bit older than I am, but you grew up on it too. The style of play, which is the slower games, uh, where they didn't need the pitch clock and all this BS. What is your take on that? I know you'd have success if you were still playing like that, but and you would adjust to it. But honestly, like me growing up in the 90s like I was, and I'm sure you with the 80s, and seeing that those players didn't need that and knew that. What is your take on that? I knew you would adjust to it if you were still playing,
Sure.
but I don't think. I think honestly that's BS that we've come to that level to where we've had to speed up games, and that's what's honestly killed the game. I think as well. What's your take on that?
Okay. Well, you mentioned before how all these other countries, I mean, they only have their main sport is baseball, but baseball's trying to stay relevant here. And one of their biggest knocks is how long the games can take. So I was against all those other BS rules. However, I got to experience the pitch clock. Now, for us, the pitch clock was only with nobody on base. And in my opinion, that was honestly ended up working out great because you get some of these starting pitchers that are so slow in between pitches that guys were, thank you, appreciate you. My brother looking out for me, give me a little bit of water.
There you go. I
Oh,
got my
um,
Mountain Dew, so
nice.
it works out well.
I ended up really liking the pitch clock with nobody on base because it just kept the game moving a little bit. If guys get on base, that's fine. It becomes regular baseball. But when there's nobody on base and guys are just taking their sweet time, calling timeout and all that kind of stuff, I saw how it sped up the games up, and it didn't feel like the game was changed any other way because there's no limit on pickoffs. Actually, they did limit pickoffs this year, so we had limited pickoffs, but it wasn't as big of a deal as it was in the U.S. The U.S. side, there's so many more guys that were stealing bags, and it was so much faster that it's different than here. So we definitely had the three pickoff rule, and I never saw that rule ever come into play. Nobody ever picked off three times to where the guy advanced. Maybe one time it happened in the season, but every time you disengage the rubber is when they count. So there's sometimes if you can't get a pitch with your catcher and you step off and be like, hey, let's change it up again or go back through, that counts as a disengagement. So that counts as a pickoff move. So I think as time goes on in Mexico, maybe they'll take a little bit more advantage of that. But I did end up liking the pitch clock with nobody on base. All some of the other rules and there, like the time in between pitches with guys on base, didn't like that so much. The disengagement wasn't as big of a deal for me seeing it personally, but I'm sure, considering how important runs are in Major League Baseball and how everything is magnified up there, I can see how that is. I just think baseball's trying to do whatever they can to stay relevant and get those people that are in between where they're casual fans that don't want to sit there for 4 hours and the diehards that want to keep the game the same forever. But the way things are, I mean, you can't take guys out at base anymore, which is frustrating. Guys getting that, but they're allowing bat flips and all that other BS. I understand enjoying the game and that kind of thing, but I think that's been taken to a level that's is borderline disrespectful for the game and the guys because you don't see. I mean, you see occasionally a pitcher, pimp a strikeout or something like that. But the way these guys are hitting home runs like they're winning the World Series is frustrating, at the least, and disrespectful at the worst, in my opinion. But I did not mind the pitch clock because I know how it sped the game up. Even as a player being there all day, every day, it was nice to see force guys that are taking their sweet times to get on the rubber and get after it. So it kept the games going a little bit, and it didn't affect the game otherwise with guys on base. Guy gets a base hit, first pitch is back to regular baseball. The time in between pitching changes was tough because as a reliever running in from the outfield, you have 2 minutes from the time the pitching change is made, and if you can only throw two or three pitches when you're on the rubber, that's on you. You don't get any extra time to warm up. I've had guys go out there, the guys that are major league guys that go out there, they'll take their automatic ball one to throw a couple extra pitches to make sure they're ready. So there's definitely different styles of that kind of stuff. Those would probably the one that's probably the one thing that I would like to have is relievers come in and give them their chance to warm up because I mean we're not doing anything extra most of the time. It's just a matter of getting the mound and get a couple pitches in, and you're cutting us off from two or three warm up pitches on a mound that we haven't pitched on yet. It's probably dug out from all the guys before that. So
I mean,
um,
I see why they did it, but it's just like
it takes
it
away from the purity of
it
the game.
just
I get that for sure.
it just sucks because the older players that I've spoke to, and it's true too, and I feel the same as they do that have lived it. The old players that I've had who lived it in that time and era, those players didn't need this BS. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just sad that it's come to this. I think.
It's not for the players anymore though. It's for the fans because the fans are what brings in the money, and the money is all.
Right.
At the end of
But
the
the
day, that's
players
all
are
that
the
really
ones
matters.
but the
So for
players
those
are the
guys,
one but the players are the ones who have pretty much done this, making it long games though, with all
sure.
the adjustments of the batting gloves, like you said, the freaking messing with their
So what
bats.
you could say is they brought
So
it upon themselves by
yeah.
by doing all that stuff. So
Would you
they,
say that?
I for sure I think there's no one way responsibility. I think the players are responsible for a certain part of it, and obviously the league's trying to speed up the games a little bit. But then you start seeing the injuries happening, and there's got to be some sort of causation for these extra injuries happening on top
Right.
of just hey, everyone's trying to throw as hard as they possibly can all the time, which is inevitable going to cause injuries and that kind of thing. But then you're making these guys throw more pitches at more rapid pace with less recovery in between pitches and that kind of thing. So there's so
Right.
many things they're studying. So I can see both sides of the story. I don't mind the pitch clock the way I dealt with it, but I could see how that could be a problem, especially for older guys that didn't experience that or grew up a completely different way and having to get in the box and do a certain thing. Got to look up at 8 seconds. So there's more things you're worried about than just hitting the ball. But
And hence, like you
um,
said, yeah, more injuries I do are happening because of this, and I truly believe that too. Because not only were injuries happen, of course, obviously before because pitchers were still throwing hard, like you said, but it's getting more injuries out there more because of the pitch clock now.
sure,
Because if
at least it seems it's from those kinds of things because the
yeah,
injury rate did go up. So there's got
right,
to be some reason. I mean, it could just be an anomaly that year they ended going up because everybody's supposed to be throwing as hard. Uh oh, you got me?
yeah, I gotcha.
Sorry, I don't know what happened to my
No, you're
screen.
good. You're
Okay,
good.
good. Um, there's I mean all these guys care about now are trackman numbers, and they're not even watching how these guys are pitching or the stats they're having. They just want to say, well, this guy's got 20 inches of vertical rise on his fastball,
Right.
this guy's
Yeah.
slider moved 17 inches, and that's all we care about right now. So that's what guys are focused on, and that's the unfortunate part in my mind, that naturally that's going to happen. So if all you're focused on every day is throwing the ball as hard as you can and making it move as much as you can, you naturally cannot survive that long, especially as a reliever when you're trying to throw every day or every other day. You cannot throw 100 miles an hour every single day, day in and day out, and not expect to have some sort of injury or some sort of setback. One guy, I cannot think of his name right now. Um, he talked about how he would sit, low to mid 90s during the game, and then when he needed it, he'd reach back for 100. Well, they won't allow guys to do that anymore because they'll be like, "Oh, you're only throwing 92, 93. You know what's happening?
Yeah.
No, we need you to throw 100 miles an hour every single time, or you're not worth anything to us." So,
Now, obviously, you were a reliever, of course, like you
mm,
said. My next point is a question too is reading off with this the rule changes that they've done. Do you, since I grew up in the old time era where starting pitchers actually went to full nine, do you think we'll? I mean, we've seen that slowly come back. Some with some teams, slowly but surely we have at least. Do you honestly think we'll ever get to that point again?
nope.
We'll see that again.
And I think it's all because of analytics. What they'll say is, hey, this guy's got a batting average against him. First time through the lineup of 190. Second time is 260. Third time the lineup is 320. Well, we have guys that we can come in, bring in the sixth inning on, where their batting average against them is 097 or 164. Uh, I don't think most managers are allowed to use their eye test anymore. Like, well, if the guy's still dominating, leave him out there. It's like, oh, nope. after second time through the lineup, this guy's got to come out because they start crushing him afterwards. As opposed to
Basically, like
the
you're
guys
saying,
only
what
got
happened with Blake Snell in the 2020 World Series.
exactly those kinds of things. Those kinds of things, and I think they'll be. I think they'll gradually get away from using analytics all the way and having analytics as a major tool. And then for me, I was so happy with how Dave Roberts handled the bullpen this time, where he went out there for training. I thought, oh, he's pulling him. I can't. I mean, I get it, but I would love to see him stay out there and having to go out there, look him in the eye, and leave him out there, and him to get those big out, the big strikeout after
Mhm.
that. That was the biggest difference for me for Dave Roberts from the years past when they couldn't get the job done to this last year. Is he went out there and he followed his gut instead of just listening to
Yeah,
the stat
I noticed
nerds, if
that
you want
this
to
year.
call them that. Yes,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's a sign of somebody who's maturing and growing as a manager. Like, hey, look, obviously this analytics are a huge tool, but go out there and I mean, let a guy look into a guy's soul, and if he wants it, if he wants it. If you can look into him and he doesn't want it, or he's scared, or he's done, then you pull him. But if you go out there and look him in his face and you know that he's got it, you go with your guy, and you don't regret it whether he gets the out or not. If he gets up a home run there, you did it. You gave him the opportunity. You saw in him. He made a bad pitch, but he didn't. He went out there and got the job done, and that's that for me. I think that's what one of the World Series is, that kind of attitude right there. So.
I think you're right. I think he learned his lesson from the 2020 when he listened to the analytics and took out.
Oh my gosh! Oh, that
And
was so
then
painful.
he learned.
That's
He learned.
that's what I'm referring to.
He
So
learned. He learned from his counterpart not to do that.
yes, absolutely. And if you're not growing and evolving as a manager, you're not going to last very long. And there's a reason why he's lasted long. Granted, he's got a huge, amazing roster, but I think he did a great job. And then putting Bueller out there to finish it, I think that was just the icing on the cake, man. So really cool to see. Really happy for them. And they just got way better by signing Snell.
Oh,
I'm not sure if they're in the
don't.
Sasaki running
I
still.
know. Don't get me started on that because Snell
Oh
was my
my
guy in San
gosh!
Diego. I'm a San Diego guy, so I've been.
Nice knowing you.
Yeah, I've been a Padre fan since '98, and I
Oh boy.
followed him because I'm also a Rays fan too. I followed him with the Rays as well.
Okay,
So
I got you.
I yeah, but I can see why he went there though because mostly that roster was Rays because of that general manager Friedman.
Sure.
So
Well, I mean, but then
because
you
of
get, I
that.
mean, I guess they just won a championship. They didn't. They're not losing virtually anybody. They're adding one of the best starters in the world to that rotation already with Otani coming back too. It's going to
Yeah.
be absurd unless they just get injury laden. I think this is one of the best opportunities for a back to back season that we've seen in a long time. So
Do you think we possibly saw the end of Kershaw's career, or do you
I
think
think
he'll
so.
pitch again?
No, I don't think so. I think he would do himself a disservice if he goes somewhere else because I don't think the Dodgers need him or want him back. I think it would be great for him to go out on a high note. He couldn't get it done this year, but he went out with a second ring. So, in my opinion, I mean, I know, I mean, what it is to want to keep playing, but I think it would. I don't want to say tarnish his career, but I think it would just take it down a notch if he goes somewhere else just to try to get some pitching in. So,
I feel yeah.
money's not an issue there. He's got plenty of money.
Oh yeah.
I think his legacy is intact if he is done. So.
I feel yeah. I think but yeah, I feel you. I don't think he wants to end it off on that note injured because he didn't get a chance to pitch.
No, sure, nobody does, but
No.
maybe that's the indication. Like, hey, look, you won in 2020 with the short season, and then you were a part of this team and got to be a part of this when you can get a ring. So I can see why that would be a motivation to come back, but I don't think the Dodgers bring him back. They have too many other things going on. They don't want to have to worry about an older guy like this and try to walk on eggshells around a guy like this and not disrespect him by not using him the way he wants to be used. Not that that's because I mean, look what happened with Pujols and the Angels and how that
Yeah.
ended. He moved on, and granted, his tenure with the Angels, in my opinion, was not what they wanted. Definitely not what they were expecting to get for that kind of money. But to end it the way it did was kind of you never want to see that happen with a guy of that stature. So, and Kershaw's definitely that stature, if not higher. So,
And now speaking of obviously their counterpart, who they were in the World Series against, where you see Soto going?
oh man,
It's a
I
toss
know
up,
I know the
man.
Dodgers were in the hunt.
Yeah, it's a
I
toss
I,
up.
I think it's going to be the Mets or the Yankees.
You think so?
That's my initial
I want to.
reaction.
I hate to say it, but I think the Dodgers they're heavily in, man.
I just don't know
I
how they
hate.
can
I hate
afford
to
to.
see.
How
I
are
hate
they
to
going to
say
pay him?
that.
I don't know how they're going to pay him. That's the part I don't understand. Is I don't know how
No
they're going to pay
salary
him
cap
too.
and no salary cap. They can do whatever they want.
Sure, sure, and but to have that many superstars on one team can become a problem. I mean, if I know it's NBA, but you saw what happened when the Lakers brought in all those superstars and how they didn't work together.
Yeah, but one
And
outfielder
Sharon,
just retired though, Kevin Kiermaier. So they don't need. They got to replace an outfielder. So why not do it with a better one in
I,
Soto?
I think somebody else is going to come along and try to throw enough money at him to get him away from there. I think it's the Mets, but we'll see how it goes. He showed that he can play in the Big Apple and that he can compete on the biggest stage in front of those kinds of fans. But we'll see. I mean, I don't see him taking less money to go to the Dodgers, so we'll see. That'll be
I
interesting to see where he lands.
I hate to say it, but I still think the Dodgers, and that would suck.
I mean, I'm not against it
Dodger
because
fan.
I'm a Dodgers fan. I grew up an Angels fan, but I became a huge Dodgers fan by playing for the organization. They treated me really well run. I really enjoyed my time there. I wish I could have gone back there, but um, they left a huge impression on me, and I've been a big fan of theirs since. So
Now, since I am a Floridian, I do got to ask you this. I know you know about it. It's all been all over the news, especially after the hurricane, the Rays, the city. I don't care what the Rays will say. I think the city did fine. This owner has always. I know he said he wants to stay here, but I don't believe him. The market went down. I guess the city deal is down. Whatever for the new stadium. Where do you see the Rays going? Because there's a lot of talk now they want to go to Orlando supposedly, which would suck for the Tampa fan base, but whatever.
right,
I don't care. The owner wanted this is from the same owner that wanted to do half and half. So he wanted to get I don't care what he says. He wanted to get out of here from the very beginning. So where do you see them playing? Because I would
I
hate to see baseball leaving here, but I hate to say it, but I think it is. I think baseball's honestly done here.
well, I heard that they're going to try to play the season at the spring training facility for the Yankees.
They are. That's been concluded.
So
Yes, they are.
that's confirmed.
Yes.
I don't see them staying there. They're definitely not going to rebuild the stadium that they're in. Um, I don't know what's going to happen. I know maybe that ownership is trying to avoid the negative um, feedback that the A's owner is getting from the way he's treated that team. Um, so I think this guy's going to be a little bit more, I guess, sensitive to the fans, but I don't know if there's going to be enough to keep him there. Um, I don't know where else they're going to go or what they're going to do. It would be hilarious if they moved to Oakland and played in
That would
Oakland.
be. That would be.
And that was one of my first thoughts. Well, they just left Oakland. Why don't they play there for
That
a
was
little
the
while? And
original thought too. Yes, I know. I heard that. I heard that out there too. I was like, that'd be
the
stupid.
irony would be fantastic, and because that way the Oakland fans would still have a team. It wouldn't be the A's, but they get a team that wants to be there and maybe build a fan base around some jaded fans and see how that goes.
And then we would lose ours. But that's
Yeah, and unfortunately for you guys, I mean, not unwarranted, but nobody really showed up to the games there, and
well,
that's
that's because of
unfortunate
the owner. That's
for
because
sure. And I get it.
we had no faith in the owner, and it's
Right,
true. He
right.
wanted to. I don't care what he says. I don't care. He said it from. I don't care what he
Well, he's
said.
just going to use that as leverage. Like, well, you guys don't
Exactly.
show up to the games. How can I stay here if you guys aren't coming? So
Yeah,
he's,
he's used that
I
for
mean,
years.
for sure.
So I don't
And that's,
care. So.
I mean, these guys are smart business owners. They'll find their way to wiggle out of certain situations and that kind of thing. So that'd be very interesting to see how that works out too. Baseball is going to be a really interesting season this next year, with the A's playing in a AAA stadium and you guys playing at a spring training facility. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
So my baseball analysis guy he saw that you were 18 when the Angels beat his Giants in the World Series. Did you
Yes.
go to that World
No,
Series
I mean
or
I
those
watched
games?
every game there, and Benji Gill was like a platoon shortstop. I ended up playing for Benji Gill for 4 or 5 different seasons down here in Mexico. I won 3 championships with him down here, so I had some nostalgia from that team just from watching them win. I had a chance. Troy Percival was I can't remember if he was the head coach or the pitching coach at UCR. I had a chance to talk to him a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
about playing baseball there and um, facing Bonds at the time and him being on the mound when they won the championship, and how different it was there, how going to the National League was like playing in a AAA league, and how he made a good career for himself leaving the American League to go to the National League and have some success over there and make some money. Um, But I mean, a huge Angels fan go there watching Tim Salmon and all those guys, win that championship. Um, did not get a chance to win those games, but I definitely watched every single one of them and was so pumped when they won it.
So then I got to ask you about your team. Then, do you think with Ron Washington? I know they've done some signings. They've spent over 100 mil this year. Do you think he can turn them around?
Nope. That is an organization in the trash right now, and they don't have anybody coming up, in my opinion, that's going to make enough of a difference. I don't know what the solution is. I really don't know, unless they just go out and spend a ridiculous amount of money on guys. But I don't see that
Which they've
happening. I
done.
think they've absolutely ruined Trout's career.
Oh yeah.
And I think a little bit. I think Trout has some responsibility in that
Oh
because
yeah.
he
Like
could have
he can't
asked.
stay healthy. Yeah.
And he could have asked to leave. And I think even Marty gave him the option, like, "Hey, look, we'll get you out of here if that's what you want, because we respect you enough to get you out
Yeah,
of
but
here."
I respect him. Kudos enough. He wants to stay. I mean,
But then again, I can see it as maybe he's just saying someplace comfortable, where he's the big fish in a small pond, and do what he wants. He's comfortable with his wife and kids there,
that's what I'm
and
saying. He
there's
want
no
more
there's no
kudos to
pressure
him.
on him to perform other than to put up some numbers. He doesn't have to
That's what I'm
carry
saying.
anybody.
More kudos to him if that's how he wants to be, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
you don't
and
want to
that's not what
market
you
his
want to. That's
brand.
not what you want to see as a fan, or as your franchise guy. You want some guy that's going to want to push them to win. He's not a big talker anyway. He's not a big like rah leader type guy. So it's just disappointing to see that. I would like to have seen him like at least make some sort of statement that he's upset with how things are going, to at least try to get some motivation out of the ownership or something. Not to alienate anybody, but show a little bit more emotion than like, we'll get him. We're trying. It's For a guy that has that kind of stature is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I hate to say it, but I like Ron Washington, and I like him as a manager, and the players love him too. And I feel for him because honestly, I you guys need a new general manager and definitely new ownership
Oh
for
yes,
sure
yep. Before anything can
because
happen,
they'll
I think there's another 5 years minimum where they're not going to be any good at
because
least.
he's a good manager, and I hate to see his waste his career there, but I feel that what's going to be they're going to give up on him in the next year or two. I know they signed him to I think a massive deal for like 5 or 6 years. I think I can't remember how long it is, but they'll give up on him. They will.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I mean, he's a tough spot. He's not in a position to win, and as long as they understand that he's not going to win a lot of games and try to do the best he can with what he's got, then hopefully they stick with him. But I mean, you can only
and
do
the
so
sad
much with
part
what you
is
got.
he's got some good young talent too.
I
Sean,
no, I
Sean,
don't. I don't disagree with that, but
Sean and Wells proven himself. What's this short? Nito, he's proven himself. I
the
mean,
catcher did before he got hurt was
catcher,
doing really
yeah.
well.
I
Yes.
can't think of his name, yeah, right
Oh
now.
something. Oh something.
Yeah, he's proven himself, but
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Other
but
than
yeah.
that, yeah, you're right.
I mean, you had Trout and Otani, and you couldn't finish above 500. I mean,
And Rendon, who can't stay healthy,
oh,
both
he is
years.
the worst signing in the history of baseball. My goodness. But
Oh, Hoppy. Sorry. Oh,
oh,
Hoppy was
Hoppy. Yeah, that's what that is.
my
That's what it
my
is. Yep.
statistician got that. Thank
Awesome.
you. I couldn't remember, but yeah, you're right. Oh, Hoppy now. Yep. Other than he's the only other. Those three are the only ones. Young wise. Rendon, yeah, can't stay healthy. I was a waste, just like Pujols. At
Right.
least Pujols stayed healthy though,
I
even though
mean,
he did.
that plantar fasciitis thing that affected him for a long time, where he couldn't really run the bases, and it cost him some hits and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
but at least he played through it though,
Sure, no, you
Unlike
definitely
Rendon.
respect that. You definitely respect that. You don't respect a guy like Rendon, who doesn't like baseball, and he's taking 30 million a year to do absolutely nothing. So
I know. Can you believe he said that when he came out and said that in
absurd,
public?
absolutely absurd. I'd try to find some way as the Angels to get out of a contract somehow from that statement or something. And I don't know. They made the mistake. They got to live with it. It is what it is.
Well, yeah, they're still living it with Pujols, aren't they? I think they're
Yeah.
still paying him, aren't they? Technically,
I think so. I think he had some deferred money after this to do it.
that's crazy. So that leads me to my Padres. What do you think? Where do you think they go from here?
I just think they're between a rock and a hard place because they have the Dodgers, who are not afraid to spend and keep getting better. It's just going to be a matter of, honestly, it's not the most talented team that wins. It's a team that plays really well together. So if they can bring in some guys, to create that good team chemistry, that is paramount in this game. I mean, look at in my opinion, like um, Arizona Diamondbacks last year getting to the World Series. That they didn't belong anywhere near there, in my opinion. They were nowhere near as good as the Dodgers,
And
and
neither were the
they grinded
Rangers.
it out, and they got to the Rangers. Rangers were hot, and they were a really good team. But for them to even get the World Series, I thought was a huge, um, a compliment to what they were
You
as
know,
a team.
baseball hated that World Series, right?
Of
The
course they
higher
did.
ups, the
Of
higher
course
ups
they
hated
did.
that.
They
That's
love
why they
this
love
one.
this one. That's why
Yeah.
they love this one,
Yep.
which is stupid, but
But
whatever.
because it's all about money. When it comes to money, as a baseball fan, you love to see an
You know
underdog
what?
team go
Yes,
out there
right.
like
You're
that.
right. Money, because they don't
Mhm.
want they don't care the market other of these markets. They
Yeah.
don't care. All they care about is the ratings from the casual fans.
Well, I mean,
That's why they hated it.
I'm thinking about how much money they're giving Otani, but how much money they've made off that guy, even to this point already, and he's only been in there for a year. So imagine, 4 or 5 years down the road, 700 million doesn't look like anything when they've made 3, 4, 5 billion off of. So
Correct. That's why they're able to sign all these players because he deferred it.
right. Well, and then and the thing too is, it's not the ownership obviously wants to make money, but that's not them winning is going to make them as much money as anything else. So if they can go out there and spend that kind of money, it's not about making another $1 billion on top of it. The organization's worth billions. They're going to make their money, but to go out there and actually spend some money on guys shows their fan base, their huge fan base, that they're super loyal and want to win. They're going to put a good product out there for years to come.
Thank you, my statistician. I don't know if you can see this or not,
Uh-huh.
but remember David Huff that we were talking about?
Of course.
I interviewed him 6 months ago.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. I'll have to
So
reach
I'll
out to him and
definitely
tell him I did your podcast and ask him about you, and then see if he liked you, and maybe we'll come on.
yeah, I'll have to see it. I'll have to see if I can find him in the phone too.
I got you. Well, I have his information too, so I can reach out to him and say hello. But I'm not trying to cut you off at all, but I need to wrap it up here pretty soon.
Yeah, it's getting late over here too. It's midnight over
Yes,
here.
yes, it is.
But yeah, I mean, but I will say this though, if you have one time for one more question real quick,
Yes, absolutely.
um, I'll get to it. Obviously it's a current question. Uh, we kind of briefly talked about it. Honestly, do you like the current state of baseball and the way it's going? I know commissioner, I hate him. I don't like the commissioner. He's I hate to say it, he's a dick and he is.
Yes,
Um, and he wants to retire in 29. So be it. He works for the owners, which are dicks as well. I don't care. But besides Peter Seidler, who's done pretty good, God bless his soul, who died this year for the Padres. But do you like where the state of art of baseball going these days? Do you like where it's going? Do you see it ever changing back to the way it was? Where
I
do you
I
see
hope
baseball going?
I hope baseball gets a little bit more back to its roots in the next couple of years. We went so off the diving board, off with analytics, that we got away from the true essence of baseball. And the baseball's an art. It's not just a science. It's not just about reading the stats and seeing the pitch movement and doing that kind of thing. It's seeing what guys can do. You can't measure a guy's heart or the balls he's got in a big situation. You can't put numbers on that kind of. You can try as hard as you can to put numbers on it, but until we get back to a point where analytics becomes a tool instead of like the end all be all, I I think it's the game's going to be in the wrong direction until we get back to that. I see glimpses of it, like I said, with Dave, leaving training in that big spot and those kinds of things. The guys are getting back to what made them managers in the first place and what made them valuable to those organizations in the first place before just putting a bunch of guys in a room and signing a bunch of guys that never played baseball before in their lives because they can read some stats or sift through data really well. That
Mm-hmm.
will have its place. I think they'll always have its place in this game is the analytics side, because you're always looking for an advantage. But I think the teams that get back to playing, with their heart and with their eyes and watching what's actually going on, that's when baseball will get back to what I think we would love to get it to. I don't think the pitch clock and that stuff's going to go anywhere because they want to speed these games up a little bit. So I think it's going to be an adjustment for the guys coming up to figure out what works for them, and these older guys are going to have to either adjust to it or they're going to fail. That's not going to go anywhere because they want these games to go a little bit faster. That's not going to change because that's the only way they're going to bring in more fans, newer fans that didn't grow up playing baseball or they're not super fans, the casual fans. would love to go for a 2.5 3 hour game, but they're not going to want to sit there for 3.5 4 hours in a 1-0 game or a 2-1 game, or to see these position players coming in, pitching up down 17 or whatever they are. That was kind of embarrassing there for a little while too, where you're having all these position players get in there and pitch.
It is. Yeah, they
Um,
need to change that. Yeah, I
so
agree.
I'm I'm glad that baseball's trying to do things a little differently. I don't necessarily agree with all the things they're doing, but I like the fact that they're trying to do something, and I'm liking the fact that guys are getting back. I hope these catchers. I wouldn't mind an automated strike zone so you can get these guys off the one knee and trying to these catchers yanking the ball in the strike zone is so irritating because if they ever did that when I was growing up, the umpires would be like, "What are you doing? You're insulting my intelligence as like an umpire trying to pull the ball back into the zone."
Yeah,
So hopefully get away from that a little bit and understand that those big wild pitches where guys are advancing bases or losing games because of a wild pitch on a standard pitch that would easily blockable if you're just squared up to home plate like you're supposed to be, in my opinion. And the one knee garbage is just not there. So I think when a few of those things change up again, I think we can get back to at least a recognizable the game that's recognizable to what we were accustomed to growing up. But I don't think it ever get back to that. The game's got to evolve if it's going to grow. But you just got to see what works and see what doesn't. I think they're seeing what doesn't right now. I think that guys, so many guys getting hurt, they're gonna have to make adjustments doing that too. So I'm really excited to see what ends up happening. Like I said, I'm not entirely confident they're going to do everything the right way immediately, and it's going to take some convincing, especially of the older guys and the old guard, like us. Like we're a little bit of the old guard. Um, they might turn us off a little bit, but I think it's something we're going to have to adjust to too. It's either we can complain about it or we can grow with the game and see what happens.
and I'll leave you off on this note because I know you got to go, like you said, and I got to go too because it's late over here.
Yes.
Um, I got into, like I told you just now with Manfred, how I hate him. And he said how he considers his own sports trophy a piece of metal. You playing, I know you obviously didn't make it to the majors,
No.
but I know you wanted to. How do you feel as a player knowing that a commissioner of your own league, which you were a part of, which you, well, in the minors at least, you were a part of, because he has something to do with that as well, that you
All,
were, what do you, as a former player and a current player in the past that was part of that, what's your take on his idea of
all,
that idiocy of calling his own sports trophy a piece of metal?
I'll tell you one thing. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into that piece of metal, if you want to call it that. I think that's insulting for the guys that put in the effort every day. I would like to hope to think that he misspoke or regret saying that.
I hope
But
so
definitely,
too.
but definitely disappointing to hear that from somebody that's supposed to be the penultimate person that represents the game of baseball. And I understand why guys would hate him for that and that kind of thing. Um, like I said, hopefully he regrets that what he said and
I hope
understands
so
that
too.
would piss somebody off and how any baseball player worth their weight would be upset by that. And um, but then again, hopefully guys are at the point where they don't give much of a thought of to what he says because of the type of person he is and can brush it off like maybe it's just a piece of metal to him because it's something he'll never attain and it's something that we've grinded our entire lives for. I've had a few trophies. Yes, that my trophy that I've won and I've had held up is a piece of metal, but that meant so much more than that piece of metal for the blood, sweat, and tears we put into that as a team all season to grind every single day.
Right.
My first championship I won in Mexico, we played 13 innings in Game 7, and we won in 13 innings on Game 7. So that piece of metal meant a lot to me. And if it didn't mean that much to him, then so be it. But he's not playing for it. We are, and that's the bottom line. So that's how I feel about it. Let him think what he wants. It's unfortunate that he represents so much of what baseball is supposed to be, and to act like that. But you know, it's much more to me than that. And I'm not gonna put too much into what he thinks about it.
And I feel it, and I couldn't feel less. But that's why I hate him, and plus I hate what he's done with siding with these. I know he gets paid by the owners for him to side, but he can at least defend the game. But he doesn't do that because
Nope.
he, especially like you said, we talked about with Oakland, he's gave up on them. He's
Yep.
given up pretty much on us. So the
It's
fan base
unfortunate.
over here. So yep, it is what it is. But I do
It's
thank you for your time. I
of course,
appreciate it.
man. Loved it. Enjoyed it.
Do you want me to send you the copy of the episode?
Yes, please. By all means.
That way you
Please do.
can That way you can share it with whoever you want. You can
Oh, I
post
can post it on
it.
my social media
So
too. Let
yeah,
let, let them see it.
yeah, you can give it to whoever you want, whatever.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'll definitely if I can't get a hold of him, yeah, maybe you can, and you can get a hold of me since you got my info now.
Sure. Certainly.
We can do that. We can have uh David Huff on as well. So
Awesome.
yeah, we can do that, and it was fun. And if you know any other people, please let them know to
Certainly.
get a hold of me, and
Talk a little bit of
I'll
baseball.
have them on as well. So I
Awesome.
appreciate it.
Awesome, Byron. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. It's a nice long talk. Lost my voice. I haven't talked to this much baseball in a long time, so it's been a lot of fun.
It has been, and I will definitely stay in touch, and I will text you. I
Perfect.
appreciate it.
Thanks,
All
man.
right,
Have a good
you have
night.
a good night. You too.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
bye. Well, this concludes this episode of Coffee Time with Byron, with Derrick Loop, former pitcher and independently. Um, it sucks, unfortunately, he could never make it to the majors, but as he said, he had a good independent career. He met his wife and had his kids there, so tremendous, tremendous. He couldn't have anything better. So, what a great talk with him. Uh, I'll see you soon. I don't know when yet. I'm going to have a next episode probably next week. I'm going to try to. We'll see who I have on. I don't know yet. But this concludes this episode. Thank you for my longtime loyal fan, Baseball R Us, which I believe his name is Eugene, as he said a couple times, if I got that right. I know you're still watching. Please let me know if I got the name correct before I head out. But I do appreciate you. Please do like you've been normally doing, sharing the YouTube version so I can get more viewers. Please do whatever you got to do so I can get more viewers. I appreciate you being a loyal fan, especially when I have a baseball guy on. I appreciate it. Um, but until then, see you next week, maybe. I don't know yet. But yep, you guys have a good night. And thank you for tuning in. This concludes episode number one something. I can't remember. Sorry. But have a good night. Take care. See you next week or whenever. Adios.